Today we're going to turn an ordinary piece of drywall into a rusted factory wall, complete with rusted bolts. Here's how we'll do it. First we'll need some Sculpt Nouveau silver coating and some iron AB metal coating, and we'll need a tan and a Tiffany green patina or a light green patina. We're also going to need a silicone mold of some bolts. We've cast these bolts up in easy flow resin with powder pigment brushed into the surface. And there's another YouTube video where I explain that process of making fake metal bolts. So feel free to check out that video prior to watching this video. Now first, we're going to dress up our piece of drywall with some of these bolts by hot gluing them into place. And keep in mind, these are just lightweight plastic bolt heads that we'll just put a little spot of hot glue on and tack them down. And the powder pigment that we brushed into the surface of the silicone mold gives the appearance of galvanized steel bolts. When we pan out to the wider shot of my shop here, you'll see that what I've done on my actual shop wall is I followed the tape lines on the drywall, so that where the tape shows through the paint, we get the appearance of bolted pieces of steel used to make a wall. And in this case, we're just going to do this on a small scale. I'm just going to glue these bolt heads down one side of the drywall to give the overall appearance, or kind of give a sample of how we're going to do the wall in the background. Now, just to break up that flat surface, I'm going to cut up some corrugated cardboard, which oddly enough was used in the packaging of the Sculpt Nouveau metal coating. So if you get a shipment of Sculpt Nouveau metal coating and you have some of this extra corrugated cardboard, it makes great little grills on your fake metal wall. So I'm going to hot glue that into place, and I decided to make a couple of these little panels. And when I show the background later on in the video, you'll see some of the other little hardware tricks you can do to dress up your fake steel wall or door. But now that we've got those in place, we're ready to start applying our metal coating. Now the iron AB metal coating is an acrylic base with actual iron ground up in it. So it's real iron that you're applying to the surface. I like to apply my first coat as evenly as possible with a chip brush or some other kind of disposable brush here. And then once I get an even coating of the iron AB just laid down as a base coating, I go back over that with a torn sponge and stipple all over that to get my brush strokes out. And I find that to be a fairly important step because you don't want to have brush strokes showing through that kill your metallic effect on the final piece. So make sure before you allow your paint to dry that you come back with a sponge, or in some cases you can even use a crumpled newspaper or torn paper towel, anything that you can dab or stipple over the surface to break up the brush lines. And you'll notice I'm not trying to brush over the bolts. It's okay if we get a little bit of paint on the bolts, but we want to try to keep it off the bolts since those are supposed to be galvanized steel that wouldn't rust. Now I'm going back over the entire piece here with the sponge and just breaking up those brush strokes. We want to dab out all the brush strokes and just get an even texture all over the surface. Once you've done this, you want to give the piece about 10 minutes or so to dry before you apply the next coat. Now while that's drying, we're going to pour our light green patina into a spray bottle. Now you can use either light green patina or the Tiffany green. Either one will create a vibrant rust over the iron paint. Once we've transferred that into the spray bottle, we're ready to seal that up. And keep in mind that you want to always use a new spray bottle because it will erode the metal springs in those spray bottles. Now we're also pouring out some tan patina into a little paper cup, and you'll see why we do that in just a minute. Now that our first coat has dried, we're ready to come back with our second coat of iron AB. And again here we're just applying an even coat all over the surface. And we'll do the same thing with our sponge coming back over the top to break up any of our brush strokes. Now at this point you want to move fairly quick because if it's a dry day and the metallic paint starts to dry quickly, you won't be able to get as good of a rust showing as you would if it's humid and the paint is drying slower. I think when I did this, it was about 80 degrees in my shop. So as soon as we're done stippling that surface, you want to immediately spray on your green patina. Just a light spray is all you need, and then set that aside and you'll instantly see rust start to form. Notice that we already have some reddish brown forming. This was a good humid day, so we immediately got a good effect. And the longer that sits, the deeper that rust starts to get, and the more orange and dark brown and red that you start to see. Now we're going to take a sponge and dab a little bit of the tan patina around our bolt heads. And I just use the tan patina just to give some highlights and break up just the otherwise reddish brown overall look that helps bring out some oranges and give some more variety to the overall color. I want these gratings to look like they're made of maybe a different grade of steel here. Now to create some streaks, we can kind of dry brush with our sponge. Just very carefully just draw down a little bit of that and create some streaks like some old rust that's or maybe even some recent rust strips or whatever you want to create on that. Now at first it's not going to look like much because this is a chemical reaction that has to take place. So you don't want to overdo the effect. I'm doing a lot of things here just to give you an overall idea of what you can do with the product. But keep in mind that it will turn a lot as it sits. So step back, let it do its thing, and in about 30 or 45 minutes, if it's a good humid day, you're going to see a pretty drastic color change. And there we have it. Our piece is dry. Now at this point it will continue to turn some more, but we're going to go ahead and move on for the sake of the video and show you some other little tricks. To give the look of rust over galvanized steel hardware, I went back with a scoring pad here and just buffed off a little bit of the iron paint that had dripped onto these bolts and gave the illusion of some of this galvanized metal showing through the iron. And that just helps the illusion, helps sell the effect that this is an old piece of hardware here. Now for our final touch here, we're going to add some silver B paint. And the silver is just that, just a bright silver. It's not going to rust. I believe it's made with an aluminum powder. So we're just going to dab on a little bit of that on our acid brush here and go back and touch some of the highlights. And what we're doing here by dry brushing the silver over some of these areas of rust, we give the illusion that some of the high points have scuffed off to reveal bare metal or bare iron or steel here. And this is just a minor touch that not entirely necessary, but again it helps with the illusion of something that's been scuffed up a little bit and the raw metal is showing back through the surface. I'm going to go around the edge here too and show you a little trick. It always helps sell the metallic effect if you hit any of the highlight areas, any of the areas that would naturally be scuffed or rubbed off in daily use. Hit that with the silver B and it gives the appearance of the raw steel showing through the rust. Now once we've touched up with our silver B, we are finished with our piece and we can let it continue to turn and get the finished rust look that we want. Now again, this is about 45 minutes later, and if we gave this another day, we would probably still see some color change, but if we like it as it is, we could clear coat it to stop it. Now here's my wall, and you'll see some little wall panels I did with foam core and some of that corrugated cardboard, and here are some of the fake little wing nuts that I hot glued into place to create the illusion of these little wall panels screwed on. And then these shelf brackets were made over metal shelf brackets with foam core cut into triangles and hot glued into place. And then again we hit those high points with more of that silver B. So there you have it. How to make a plain drywall surface look like an old steel wall, or more specifically a rusted steel wall.